The strange part is I wasn't even supposed to be home that day. The flight was canceled. Some mix-up with the weather in Dallas grounded everything, and the earliest reschedule was for the following morning. So I did what any tired, overworked marketing exec would do. I caught the next available flight home and figured I'd surprise my wife. A small detour to the local bakery for her favorite blueberry scones, a quick stop for coffee, and I was pulling into our driveway in the middle of a golden afternoon, grinning like a fool. I had no idea the next 10 minutes would gut me like a fish. Lauren and I have been married 6 years. Not without its struggles, sure, but who doesn't have rough patches? We met in college. She was an English lit major with messy auburn hair, full lips that curled when she laughed, and a laugh that made me forget where I was. She was the kind of woman who didn't just walk into a room. She claimed it like she paid rent in the air. We were passionate. And when I say passionate, I mean the kind of sex that comes with bruised lips and scratch backs, even 2 years after saying, I do. But the last few months, something shifted. We still touched, kissed, hell, even fucked, but something deeper, some anchor that used to hold us together, had slipped loose. I didn't expect to find the answer in my own bed. The moment I stepped into the house, I knew something was off. There was a dampness in the air, not from weather, something heavier. A smell, musk, heat. My heartbeat started to climb. The hallway was too quiet, except for the faint creak of her headboard. No fucking way. I don't know what made me move so slowly up the stairs. My arms were trembling. The coffee cup in my hand burned my fingers, but I didn't notice. At the top, I could hear them now. Moans. Skin on skin. The kind of sounds that aren't made by strangers or mistakes, but by people who know each other well. I pushed the door open. There she was. Lauren, my wife. Naked, sweat slicked, arched in pleasure. Her hands gripped the sheets, her head thrown back as she begged for more. And the man between her thighs, the one fucking her like she belonged to him, was Adam, my best friend. Adam, who stood beside me at my wedding. Adam, who held my newborn niece in his arms. Adam, who I trusted with everything. The tray crashed to the floor. Coffee spilled everywhere, soaking the carpet. Lauren's eyes flew open. Ryan, she gasped, pulling a sheet over herself. Oh my God, what are you? What the fuck is this? My voice cracked, raw and hollow. Adam froze. He scrambled off her like a kicked dog, grabbing his jeans off the floor. Man, I didn't know you'd. You didn't know? I stepped into the room, rage pounding in my chest like a war drum. That's your defense? Lauren stood now, too. The sheet held against her chest like that made it better. Ryan, I can explain. You can explain how you've been screwing my best friend behind my back. Please, she whispered. Just listen. We didn't mean for it to happen. I laughed. Cold, bitter, guttural. Didn't mean for it to happen? What was this, then? A slip and fall accident? He tripped and fell inside you. Ryan, Adam tried, but I cut him off. No, shut the fuck up. I stepped toward him, fists clenched. I trusted you. Both of you. I told you things about her, about us. And this is what you do. He looked down, ashamed. Good. Lauren reached out. It started when you were traveling so much for work. We were lonely. I was lonely. My voice dropped to a whisper. So your solution was to fuck him? Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't plan to fall for him. The room spun. Get out, I said. Both of them froze. I said, get the fuck out of my house. My throat was dry, heart hammering. Ryan, please, Lauren begged. We need to talk about this. We can fix. Feeks. There is no fix. I pointed to the door. Get your shit and get out. Both of you. Adam didn't argue. He grabbed his clothes, eyes locked on the floor, and walked past me like a beaten man. Lauren hesitated, and for a split second, I saw guilt flicker behind those tear-filled eyes. Or maybe it was just regret that she got caught. I didn't wait to see her leave. I walked out, went downstairs, and sat on the couch. My hand shook. My skin felt like it didn't fit. I didn't cry. Not then. I stared at the wall until the sun began to set. And then I opened a bottle of bourbon and drank until the numbness settled in like a blanket. They say betrayal feels like a knife in the back. They're wrong. It's more like a quiet, cold hand reaching inside your chest and ripping out everything you thought you knew. Lauren and Adam were gone. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The hangover wasn't from the bourbon. It was the silence. 3 days had passed since I caught them. The house was still, hollow, like the breath right before a scream. I'd never known quiet could feel this loud. No calls. No apologies worth hearing. Lauren had texted once. "Please talk to me. You don't understand how complicated this is." I didn't reply. Adam didn't even bother. Coward. I spent the first 2 days bouncing between anger and something darker. Not sadness. Not yet. I didn't feel grief. Not for her and not for them. What I felt was fire. A steady, growing burn in my gut that whispered, "Don't let this end like this." They didn't just betray me. They made a fool of me. In my own home. In my own bed. But you know what they say about fire? It doesn't just burn. It purifies. That's when the idea came. I don't know if it was the second bottle of bourbon or the long, sleepless nights, but somewhere in that fog, I thought of her. Catherine Whitmore, Adam's mother. She was elegance wrapped in wealth, old money class with the kind of curves that didn't beg for attention. They commanded it. I met her a handful of times over the years, usually at events Adam dragged me to. Charity galas, board luncheons, his father's funeral. She always carried herself like she was 2 steps ahead of the room. Widowed for almost a decade, and still stunning. Sharp cheekbones, dark, knowing eyes, a voice like velvet wrapped around a dagger. The last time I saw her, she'd worn this backless emerald dress that clung to her in ways that made my thoughts wander, then made me feel guilty for letting them. Back then, she was untouchable. Now she was the perfect weapon. The plan started taking shape. Slow, subtle. It couldn't be revenge for revenge's sake. It had to be cleaner, smarter. It had to make them feel what I felt. I spent that Sunday researching her foundation, the Whitmore Family Trust, focused on youth literacy, mostly. The upcoming gala fundraiser was Friday. Black tie, invitation only. Perfect. I called a contact I'd worked with during a cross-industry marketing campaign last year. Guy owed me a favor. I didn't ask for much, just an invite to the gala and a place on the VIP donor list. I made a generous donation. A few grand. Enough to get noticed. Not enough to make me look desperate. The night of the gala, I stood in front of my mirror, straightening my tuxedo, the crisp white shirt underneath tighter across my chest than I remembered. I hadn't worn this thing in 2 years. Still fit. Barely. I look good. No, sharp. My hair styled, face clean shaven. I wasn't walking into this as the wounded husband. No. I was walking in as a man on a mission. When I arrived, the venue was already glowing. Chandeliers spilled golden light across polished marble floors. Everyone sparkled, diamonds, cufflinks, glasses of champagne held like accessories. I spotted her the moment I walked in. Catherine stood near the stage, laughing softly with a small circle of donors. Her hair was swept up in that effortlessly expensive way, her black gown hugging her hips like it was painted on. She looked years younger in candlelight, but her eyes had the weight of a woman who'd seen everything and didn't need to pretend otherwise. I approached casually, timed it between conversations. "Ms. Whitmore," I said smoothly, offering a warm smile in my hand. "Ryan Blake. I made a small donation last week. Just wanted to thank you for the invitation." Her eyes swept over me once, appraising. I saw a flicker of recognition. She remembered me. "Ah, Adam's friend," she said, and I could swear there was a note of curiosity in her voice, though I don't believe we've spoken much. "Friend," I echoed with a small smile. "Past tense, I think." That caught her attention. She tilted her head. "Is that so? I'll spare you the drama," I said, voice low, intimate. But I realized recently that I've been wasting a lot of time on the wrong people. Figured I'd change that. Something in her eyes shifted. Interest. Not attraction. Not yet. But interest. "Tell me, Mr. Blake," she said, gesturing toward the bar. "Do you prefer red or white?" "Whiskey," I replied. Her smile deepened. "Good. I hate small talk over Chardonnay." We walked together to the bar. The tension wasn't romantic yet, but it was there. A slow current under the surface, ready to become something else. She was sharp, playful, effortlessly dominant in conversation. She asked about my work, my donation, the transition I was going through. I didn't lie, but I didn't give her the whole story either. When the band began to play something slow and rich, she turned to me with that amused tilt of her lips. "Do you dance, Mr. Blake?" I offered her my hand. "Not well, but I'll risk it if you will." She took it without hesitation. Her fingers were soft, but firm, commanding. On the dance floor, our bodies aligned naturally. Her scent, something floral with a bite of spice, wrapped around me as I placed my hand lightly on her lower back. She leaned in, her lips brushing the shell of my ear. "You're a dangerous man, Mr. Blake." I met her gaze. "Only to people who play games with me." She smiled, but I saw the wheels turning. Catherine Whitmore was used to men fawning over her, men trying to prove themselves worthy. But I wasn't here to worship her. I was here to make her want to know why I didn't. I didn't expect to like her. That was the first sign things were going sideways. After the gala, Catherine and I began texting, at first under the polite pretense of following up on donation opportunities. She sent me a link to a campaign her foundation was launching. I replied with a half-joking offer to volunteer if she ever needed a man who could wear a tux without embarrassing himself. She responded within 10 minutes. "Somehow, I think you're good at more than that." It was flirtatious, but controlled. Every word from her was polished. Never desperate, never crude. That's what made it so much worse. Or better. Depends on how you look at it. We met again the following week. She invited me to her estate in Ridgecrest, an old colonial mansion tucked behind tall, wrought iron gates and hedges trimmed like they were drawn with a ruler. If the outside was impressive, the interior was something else. Vintage hardwoods, ivory paneling, and walls lined with art that looked old enough to have hung in European galleries. When I stepped inside, she greeted me barefoot. That surprised me. Her hair was down, a soft wave of chestnut tumbling over her shoulder. She wore a cashmere wrap dress in slate gray, tied at the waist, hugging her in ways the black gown at the gala hadn't dared. There was something intimate about seeing her like that, undone, yet still composed. "You're early," she said, handing me a glass of wine. "I wasn't expecting you for another 10 minutes. Il y va dangerously," he replied. She smiled. Apparently. She guided me into a sitting room with tall windows and a crackling fireplace. No staff, no interruptions, just her and me, framed in old money and something else I couldn't quite name yet. We sat on opposite ends of a long velvet couch. She curled her legs beneath her, her glass resting lazily between two fingers as she studied me. "So," she said, swirling her wine, "are you going to tell me what really happened between you and Adam?" I sipped slowly, buying time. "What makes you think there's more to tell?" She leaned in slightly. "Because I raised that boy. I know when someone's running from guilt." I looked at her over the rim of my glass. "And what if I told you he's not the one running?" There it was. The pause. The flicker of surprise in her eyes. She didn't push further. Just nodded. Almost like she respected the answer without needing the details. And I didn't offer them. She stood a moment later and walked to the shelves, retrieving a leather-bound photo album. She returned, sitting closer now, close enough that her bare knee brushed against my thigh as she opened it. "Old family photos," she said, flipping through pages. "Adam's father always insisted on documenting every milestone. I expected to see stiff, posed portraits, but instead, the pictures were full of life. A younger Catherine, wild-haired and sun-kissed, holding a squirming toddler Adam at the beach. Her husband, a tall, stern-looking man with a surprisingly soft expression, grinning beside a birthday cake. "You were happy," I said without thinking. She didn't smile this time. For a while. Then the crack started. You stop seeing them if you look at the light just right, until it shatters. There was a moment of quiet. I didn't plan to ask, but the words came out anyway. "Did he cheat on you?" Catherine looked down at her wine. "More than once." The air between us changed. Heavier now. Shared pain has a way of lowering walls. "Why'd you stay?" I asked. "Because I thought it made me strong," she said. "I thought forgiveness was noble. And because I didn't want to lose everything." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that." She looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes weren't cold anymore. They were curious, kind, and something else I didn't want to name yet. I set my wine down. "I didn't come here to talk about Adam." "Then why did you come here?" she asked softly. I hesitated, but only for a breath, to see if you were real. Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't speak. Her eyes flicked to my mouth. The space between us seemed to collapse in seconds. I reached out slow, not pushing, just giving her a choice. And she met me halfway. Her kiss was not gentle. It was hungry, controlled fire. Her hand found my chest, her fingers curling into the fabric of my shirt like she needed something to hold on to. My own hand slid to her waist, pulling her closer, the thin tie of her dress brushing against my knuckles like a challenge. But we didn't go further. Not that night. When we finally pulled apart, her eyes searched mine. She was breathing hard, her lips flushed. So was I. This wasn't supposed to happen, she murmured. I nodded, voice low. But I'm not sorry. Neither was she. We sat together, close but no longer touching, the fire crackling beside us. The line between seduction and something deeper had been crossed. Not completely, but enough to know this wasn't just about revenge anymore. And that terrified me more than anything Lauren or Adam ever did. The plan was never to fall for her. Hell, the plan wasn't even to like her. But something about Catherine refused to fit into the box I'd built for her. She was supposed to be a pawn, an elegant, alluring weapon to twist the knife into Adam and Lauren. Instead, she was something else entirely, and that scared the shit out of me. We didn't talk for a few days after that night at her place. Not because anything had gone wrong, but because nothing had. That kiss stayed with me. It haunted me. The way she'd tasted like wine and winter fruit, the quiet gasp she let out when my hand found the curve of her hip, the faint press of her knee against mine. There had been a moment, just one, where it would have been so easy to keep going, to strip her bare and get lost in her. And I didn't. I hadn't expected restraint from myself, or from her, but it wasn't rejection. That was the fucked up part. It was mutual caution, mutual respect, if you can believe that. And now I couldn't stop thinking about her. By Wednesday, she texted, "You left your cufflink." Unless that was intentional. Only if you found it near your bedroom. Living room couch, actually. Shame. I think the bedroom would have been a better story. Come get it back and change the ending. That night, I picked her up for dinner. Catherine didn't do casual. Even dressed down in sleek black slacks and a silk blouse that dipped just enough at the collar. She looked like a magazine spread. But it wasn't just the clothes. It was the way she wore confidence like it was stitched into her skin. Effortless. Natural. We dined at a rooftop spot downtown, quiet, upscale, far from anyone we might know. Over red wine and sea bass, we talked. Not small talk. Real things. She asked me about my parents, my childhood, my work. She told me stories about traveling with her late husband before Adam was born, about how she missed Tuscany, but not the people. She teased me when I got passionate about a marketing pitch I'd worked on last quarter, her eyes glittering with amusement. And then, halfway through dessert, she said something that made me freeze. "Lauren called me," she said, sipping her wine. Casual. Measured. I looked up sharply. "She what?" "She found out we've been spending time together," she said. Adam told her. Of course he did. I exhaled slowly. What did she say? She asked if I knew what I was doing. And what did you say? Catherine held my gaze. I told her I don't take relationship advice from women who sleep with their husband's best friend. I laughed, short and sharp. Christ. She didn't take it well. Catherine shrugged. But I don't particularly care. Do you? I wanted to say no. That was the whole point, right? To make them squirm. To make them uncomfortable. But I hesitated. And she saw it. "Ah," she said quietly. "There it is." "There what?" She studied me for a moment. "The part of you that hasn't figured out if this is real or just vengeance." The words hit harder than I expected. She didn't say them like an accusation. There was no bitterness in her tone. Just truth. I looked down at my glass, watching the way the candlelight shimmered through it. It started as revenge, I admitted. I won't lie. I wanted to hurt him. And Lauren. The idea of seducing his mother. It felt twisted and perfect, like a kind of poetic justice. "And now?" she asked, voice softer. Now was a whole different story. Because the way she listened to me, really listened, was something Lauren had stopped doing a year ago. Because when she leaned in and laughed at my dry jokes, it wasn't forced. Because she made me feel like a man again, not just some accessory in a dying marriage. I met her eyes. Now I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Catherine smiled faintly. Good. Neither do I. After dinner, we drove in silence. The kind of silence that hums. That lives in the tension between what you want to do and what you know you probably shouldn't. Her hand rested lightly on her thigh. I had to force my eyes away more than once. When we pulled into her driveway, I didn't turn the engine off. She turned to me. Do you want to come in? I looked at her. I do, I said, but not if it'll make things worse. Her voice was calm. Sometimes worse is the only way to get better. That was all it took. Inside, everything felt the same as the last time, and completely different. We kissed again, this time harder. Hungrier. My jacket hit the floor. Her fingers fumbled with my belt. I lifted her onto the hallway console table, and she wrapped her legs around me like she'd been waiting days for this moment. And maybe we had. We didn't make it to the bedroom. It was desperate and messy and hot. God, it was hot, but what shocked me most wasn't the sex. It was how natural it felt. How easy. Like our bodies already knew each other. Like they were just catching up with the rest of us. Later, tangled in her sheets, her head on my chest, she whispered, Do you think Adam suspects? I ran a hand through her hair. He knows. She tilted her face up to mine. And Lauren? I nodded. She definitely knows. Her smile was slow. Dangerous. Good. I didn't go looking for Adam. But some things in life just come to you when the air is charged enough. It was the following Saturday, warm for spring, the kind of day that makes you want to believe things are still normal. I was walking out of a local cafe, coffee in one hand, my phone in the other, when I heard his voice. Ryan. I turned, and there he was, standing by his car across the street. Arms crossed, aviators on, casual jeans, and a fitted shirt like he was still pretending to be the cool guy everyone wanted to be around. But I saw it, even from that distance, the stiffness in his shoulders, the tension behind the sunglasses. He wasn't there for a chat. I didn't hesitate. I walked across, took a slow sip of coffee, and stopped a few feet from him. Adam. Been meaning to talk to you, he said, voice tight. You mean after you fucked my wife? Or after your mother stopped returning your calls? His jaw twitched. Don't bring her into this. Bit late for that, don't you think? There was a beat of silence. Are you sleeping with her? He asked. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. His sunglasses came off, and now I saw it clearly. Panic and disgust warring in his eyes. Jesus Christ, Ryan. My mother. I nodded slowly. That's right. He looked like he'd been punched. His mouth opened, then closed again. He couldn't form the words. Now you know what betrayal feels like, I said, stepping closer. How it burns. How it sits in your chest like acid. How it makes you second-guess every fucking thing you thought was real. It's not the same, he snapped. No. I raised an eyebrow. Because I seemed to remember you standing naked in my bed while my wife begged you to keep going. His fists clenched. I didn't plan that, he muttered. Neither did I said. But it happened. And the best part? Catherine chose me. Over you. Over your fake outrage. Over your perfect image. She doesn't know what you're doing, he said quickly. You're using her. Am I? I asked. You sure about that? His eyes narrowed. She's vulnerable. Lonely. That's what you're feeding on. You mean the same way you fed on Lauren? When she started pulling away from me, when you started hanging around more, touching her just a little too long, laughing a little too loud at her jokes. That was different. No, Adam. It was selfish. Like everything you do. He stepped forward, his voice low and sharp. You don't know what you're getting into. She's my mother. You can't just. I cut him off. She's not your possession. You lost the right to tell anyone what they can or can't do the second you unzipped your pants and climbed into my marriage. His face flushed. He looked around like someone might be watching, like he still had something left to protect. I swear if you hurt her. I laughed once, bitter and sharp. Don't worry, Adam. I have no intention of hurting her. That's your department. He didn't respond. He just stood there, stunned, blinking hard like his brain was short-circuiting. I walked away before he could say another word. That night, Catherine called. Her voice was cool, but I could hear something beneath it. Worry? Doubt? He confronted me, she said. Adam. Yes. At the foundation. Just showed up in my office. Said you were using me. I sighed. I figured he might. What did you say to him? She asked. I told him the truth. There was a pause. And what is the truth, Ryan? I rubbed the back of my neck, suddenly unsure. At first, I was angry. I wanted to make him pay. You were part of that. A piece of the plan. Silence. But then we talked. We kissed. You looked at me like I wasn't broken. And that changed things. Change how? I started wanting you, Catherine. Not as part of anything. Just you. She didn't respond right away. I need to ask you something, she said after a moment. Anything. Did you ever intentionally target me? From the start. Yes, I said. But I didn't expect you to feel real. And now, I'm terrified that I've ruined something good before it even had a chance to breathe. There was a long pause on the line. I overheard you and Adam, she said finally. My stomach dropped. What? Not the whole thing. Just enough. My mouth went dry. And I needed to know you weren't lying to me. I'm not. I believe you, she said. Just like that. I need some space, she added. Not forever. Just time to think. I closed my eyes. I understand. I care about you, Ryan, she said, voice soft. That's what makes this so damn hard. The line went dead. And just like that, I was alone again. But this time, it wasn't anger that filled the silence. It was something far more painful. Regret. There's a certain kind of silence that follows a confession. Not the awkward silence you get when someone tells a bad joke, or the quiet that hangs in a room after a fight. No, this silence is deeper. It hums. It breathes. It makes you question everything you just said, even if you know you had no other choice. That was the silence I lived in after Catherine hung up. Days passed. I didn't hear from her. No texts. No calls. Not even a cold, formal email. Just that dead, gnawing quiet that somehow said more than any angry words ever could. I tried to focus on work. Try to go about my life like I wasn't unraveling from the inside out. But every time I checked my phone, every time I walked past the bottle of bourbon on the kitchen counter, every time I saw her name in my recent calls list, I felt it. I'd blown it. I thought about reaching out. 1,000 different messages drafted, deleted, redrafted. None of them felt right. They all sounded like excuses. And I had enough self-respect left to know Catherine Whitmore didn't need apologies wrapped in weak words. She deserved the truth. Raw. Unfiltered. So I waited. And then on Thursday, just after 6 p.m., my phone rang. Her name lit up the screen like a siren. I answered on the first ring. Catherine, I want to see you, she said, her voice unreadable. Now turned out to be her home again. The same grand colonial mansion, but it felt colder this time. Her usual warmth was missing, and when she opened the door, I saw it in her eyes. She'd been crying. Come in, she said, turning before I could answer. I followed her into the sitting room, where a small fire still burned in the hearth, casting a soft amber glow across the room. She didn't sit, just stood near the mantel, arms folded. I've been thinking a lot, she began, about you, about Adam, about everything that's happened. I nodded once, unsure if she wanted me to speak. I knew, she continued, when you first approached me at that gala, that something wasn't right. You were too smooth, too calculated. It wasn't just charm, it was control. You wanted something. I didn't deny it. I couldn't. I let it happen anyway, she said, her voice softer now. Because I was lonely, because I liked the attention, because I wanted to feel wanted, like a woman again. She looked at me then, and the weight of her stare was crushing. I fell for you, Ryan. That's the worst part. Catherine, I'm not finished. She exhaled sharply, pushing a hand through her hair. And then I hear you admit to my son that I was part of some scheme, some twisted act of revenge, like I was a pawn in your little game. My chest tightened. That's not what you are. No, she said, her tone sharp. But it's what I was, wasn't it? At first. Yes, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I came to that gala with every intention of getting close to you. Not because I knew you, but because of who you were to him. I wanted to hurt Adam. She flinched slightly, but didn't look away. But then I met you. Not Adam's mother. Not the woman I planned to seduce. You. I stepped forward just enough to close part of the space between us. You made me forget about Lauren. About the pain. About everything. Not because I was trying to lose myself in you, but because you saw me, Catherine. And I saw you. She didn't respond. just watched me with stormy eyes. You said you fell for me, I continued. Well, I didn't expect it either. I didn't plan it. But here we are, and I don't care how we started. I care about what's real now. Silence again, heavy and expectant. Then she whispered, I'm scared. I closed the distance between us. Slowly, carefully. I didn't touch her, just stood close enough that she could feel me. So am I said, but I'm still here. Her eyes brimmed with tears again, but this time, she didn't look away. I hate what this is, she said. I hate that it started with pain. That Adam's caught in the middle. He made his choices, I said. Same as we did. She nodded slowly, then stepped into me. Her hands pressed against my chest, not to push me away, but to steady herself. Her forehead touched mine. I want to believe you, she whispered. Then do. She kissed me. Soft. Searching. And in that moment, everything else slipped away. The betrayal, the lies, the weight of everything we'd done. It all faded beneath the quiet, trembling truth of that kiss. When it broke, she looked up at me. Don't lie to me again, she said. I won't. She let out a breath, then smiled, just a little. Good. Because if you do, I'll break more than your heart. I smiled back. Fair enough. We stood there for a long time, wrapped in firelight and something that felt a lot like redemption. But in the back of my mind, I knew the fallout hadn't finished. Not with Adam. Not with Lauren. Not even close. I didn't expect forgiveness to come in the shape of coffee and worn-out sweatpants. But that's what Catherine wore the next morning when I showed up at her door again, unannounced, holding 2 cappuccinos and a bag of warm almond croissants from the French place she'd once told me she missed. She opened the door barefoot, eyes tired but soft, and let me in without a word. We sat at her kitchen island, quiet for a while. Not awkward, just peaceful. The kind of silence that didn't need to be filled. The kind that happens when 2 people have burned through every lie and come out on the other side a little scarred, but still standing. You know what's weird? She asked, finally breaking the silence. What? I don't feel ashamed of you. I looked up. Her lips were curved in that small, almost guilty smile of hers. After everything, she continued. The revenge, the lies, the fallout. I thought I'd feel stupid. Used. But I don't. I feel, she shrugged. Strangely alive. I smiled. That makes 2 of us. But it wasn't over. Far from it. While Catherine and I were trying to find some fragile rhythm again, the storm outside our walls was picking up speed. Lauren called me that night. Blocked number. Straight to voicemail. Ryan, I don't know what the hell you think you're doing, but this little game, it's gone too far. You're using Adam's mother to get back at us? Do you have any idea what this is doing to him? To me? This isn't who you are. Please, can we just talk? One last time. I didn't call back. Not yet. Instead, I went home and poured a drink. Sat in the silence of my too-clean condo and realized something terrifying. I didn't care what Lauren felt anymore. But Adam? Adam wasn't letting this go. The next day, Catherine texted me mid-morning. He showed up again. I was at her house within an hour. He was angry, she said, pacing in front of the fireplace. Said I was humiliating him, that the board members were whispering behind his back. He thinks you're doing this to get some sick revenge on him, through me. I folded my arms, jaw tight. Is that what you think? She shot me a sharp look. I wouldn't have let you back into my bed if I did. That shut me up. She exhaled and sank into the armchair across from me. I told him he's not the victim in this, that he doesn't get to cry betrayal when he slept with your wife. But he doesn't want to hear it. He's unraveling. Let him, I muttered. She looked at me for a long moment. Do you hate him? I didn't answer right away. I don't know, I admitted. Some days I think I do. Other days, I think I just missed the version of him I thought was real. Her expression softened. You loved him like a brother. Yeah. And he ripped that apart without blinking. She nodded slowly, then stood and crossed the room, sitting beside me. Her fingers laced with mine. You've been so focused on what you lost, she said quietly. You haven't realized what you've found. I looked at her. And what's that? A woman who sees you. All of you. Even the parts you're still angry at. I wanted to kiss her right then. But the doorbell rang. And everything shifted. Catherine rose slowly. I followed her to the door, already feeling the heat rising in my chest. When she opened it, Lauren stood there. Hair immaculate. Expensive coat. Eyes wild. Her gaze shifted between us. and I could practically see the conclusions forming in her head like storm clouds. "So it's true," she said. "Lauren," Catherine began, voice calm, "this is not the place." "Don't," Lauren snapped. "Don't try to take the high road. You've been screwing my husband." I stepped forward. "Ex-husband." She turned on me. "You're really doing this? With her?" "Yes," I said. "And it stopped being about you the moment you chose him over me." "You're pathetic," she spat. "You think this makes you look strong? It makes you look broken." Catherine put a hand on my arm before I could respond. "Lauren, if you came here to scream, you can leave. But if you want to talk like an adult, you don't get to act like some classy matriarch," Lauren sneered. "You're just a lonely, aging woman desperate for attention. And he's using you." "Enough," I said, stepping in front of Catherine. "Don't talk to her like that." Lauren's mouth fell open. Shocked. For the first time in years, I saw it. The realization that I wasn't hers anymore. That her words had no power. "I think you should go," I added. She glared at me, then at Catherine, then turned and stormed off, her heels echoing down the stone steps. Catherine closed the door slowly, then leaned her forehead against it. "Well," she said after a moment, "that was dramatic." I chuckled. "You okay?" She turned, looked at me with tired eyes. "I think I'm too old for this shit." I stepped forward, wrapping my arms around her. "You handled it perfectly." She leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder. "I'm not going anywhere, you know. But if we're going to keep doing this, we need to stop letting them set the tempo." I nodded. Agreed. No more reacting. No more waiting for the next explosion. It was time to reclaim our story. And I had a feeling the next chapter would change everything. There was a weight to the quiet that followed Lauren's confrontation. A sense that we'd crossed into new territory, and there was no going back. Catherine and I didn't talk much that night. We curled up on her couch, wine untouched, a slow jazz record spinning softly in the background. But our bodies told a different story, tangled, relaxed, trusting. The kind of intimacy that doesn't demand constant affirmation. The kind that just is. But beneath the calm, we both knew something was coming. Adam. And he wasn't the type to stay silent for long. He struck the next day. It started with a call to the Foundation's board, questioning Catherine's judgment, implying that her relationship with me was compromising her reputation, her leadership, even the financial standing of the organization. I found out about it before she did. One of my old clients sat on the advisory panel and gave me the heads up. "He's coming at her sideways," the guy said, trying to build a case to remove her from the board. Claims it's about optics, but it's personal. Of course it was. I raced over to her house. When I got there, she was already on the phone, pacing the foyer in a sharp navy pantsuit, her hair pulled back into a flawless twist, voice cold and calculated. "No, David, let me stop you right there. I'm not stepping down. If the board wants to discuss my personal life, perhaps they should also review the donation scandal from Q4. I'm happy to bring receipts." She hung up and turned to me, her expression unreadable. "I take it you heard," she said. "Yeah." She walked past me into the living room and dropped onto the sofa, exhaling like she'd been holding her breath for hours. "Adam's not just angry anymore. He's trying to humiliate me." He sat beside her. "He's trying to control you, just like he tried to control me. He doesn't know how to lose with grace." She looked down, her voice quieter now. "He's my son, Ryan. I know. I gave up a lot to raise him. I bury my wants. My career. Hell, I bury myself. And now he thinks I owe him control over my happiness." "You don't," I said, taking her hand. "You owe him love, not submission." She looked at me, then, something stormy and clear in her gaze. "I'm going to the benefit next weekend. The annual gala. The big one. Press, donors, trustees, all of them will be there." "You should," I said. "I want you with me." I blinked. "You sure?" She nodded. "I'm done hiding. Let the whispers come." The night of the gala, Catherine was fire. She wore a crimson dress that flowed like molten silk, her hair pinned up with loose strands falling just perfectly, diamonds at her ears, that same calm, dangerous smile that said, "Say something. I dare you." I walked beside her in black tie, straight-backed and cool, but inside I was all adrenaline. The ballroom buzzed with tension the moment we entered. People noticed. They looked. Some smiled politely. Others whispered behind flutes of champagne. But Catherine didn't flinch. We made our way to the front, where the board members were gathering. Adam was there, naturally, pressed into his designer tux like he was born for it. His eyes landed on us the second we stepped onto the floor, and his face hardened. He broke away from a conversation and approached with that fake smile of his. "Mother," he said tightly. "Ryan." "Adam," she returned, tone neutral. "I'm surprised you came," he said, glancing around. "Given the circumstances." "You mean your little coup attempt?" she replied coolly. "Yes, I heard. Disappointing. Not unexpected. I was simply raising concerns." "No, Adam," she said, voice just loud enough for others to hear. "You were attempting to bully me into disappearing, like you did with your father's legacy, like you did with every woman you couldn't control." The air around us shifted. Eyes turned. Adam's smile faltered. "We can talk about this in private." "No," she said. "We'll talk about it here." She took my hand in hers, bold, public, firm. "This is Ryan, the man I'm seeing, the man you betrayed when you slept with his wife. And in case you've forgotten, I am not your property. I am a woman, a mother, a professional, and I won't let you weaponize my happiness just because you feel embarrassed." Adam's jaw clenched. "You're humiliating me." "No," she said, stepping closer, voice sharp and clear. "You're doing that all by yourself." It was a kill shot. The room was still. No one interrupted. No one swooped in to save him. He turned on his heel and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Catherine exhaled, then looked at me. "Well, that was overdue." I grinned. "You didn't just burn the bridge. You nuked it." She smiled, but there was sadness behind it. Maybe it needed to go. That night, back at her house, we didn't have sex. We lay together, skin to skin, heartbeat to heartbeat, just breathing, just being. "This us," she whispered. "It's not easy, but it feels real." "It is." "I don't want to look back," she said. "You won't have to." For the first time in a long time, I felt the shift. Not a plan, not revenge, not fallout, but a turning point, a beginning. There's a kind of silence that follows public confrontation. Not the cold kind, not the sad kind. It's the silence of clarity, of people finally seeing things for what they are. And the moment Catherine took my hand at that gala and told the entire board who I was and what Adam had done, the illusion broke. We didn't go looking for approval after that. We didn't need to. The next morning, headlines from the gala flooded social feeds. Whitmore matriarch steps out with younger man. Catherine Whitmore calls out son in public showdown. Gossip rags feasted and the society blogs salivated. Photos of us were everywhere. Catherine, confident and poised in her crimson dress, and me, right at her side, looking like a man who wasn't hiding anymore. By noon, Adam had deactivated his social media. Lauren, on the other hand, she thrived on chaos. She posted a thinly veiled Instagram story that day, a black and white photo of a smashed wine glass, with a caption, "Some things break when they hit rock bottom. Others shatter on impact." Classy. She texted me that night. "You really blew it all up, didn't you?" "No, Lauren. You did. I just decided to stop sweeping up your mess." That week, Catherine and I were invited to a family dinner. A Whitmore family dinner. Not Adam's idea, obviously. Catherine's younger sister, Elise, one of the few Whitmores with both spine and heart, insisted on hosting something neutral. She said it was time for truths, time to stop letting whispers replace real conversation. I knew it was a minefield. Catherine did too, but we went anyway. Elise's house was minimalist and modern, all white marble and chrome fixtures. The kind of place where every glass clink sounded like a threat. When we arrived, Elise greeted us warmly. Her husband nodded. Their teenage kids gave us the kind of bored looks only teenagers can master. Adam was already there. He sat at the far end of the table, stiff as steel, refusing to look at me. Lauren sat beside him, legs crossed, a frozen smile on her lips. She wore a short black dress, tight enough to send a message and too cold for early spring. It was all armor. Dinner started with awkward clinking. Polite questions. Elise asking about Catherine's latest funding round, the kids discussing spring break plans, someone complimenting the risotto. Then the silence fell. The real one. The one where everyone realizes we're not here for food. I'm glad we're all here, Elise said gently, setting down her wine. We've all been through some heavy things lately, and I think it's time we stop letting those things go unspoken. Catherine cleared her throat. Thank you for hosting, Elise. I agree. Lauren sighed dramatically. Well, let's get to it then. The elephant in the room is already feeding itself dessert. She didn't look at me when she said it, but everyone knew. Lauren, Catherine warned. But I stepped in. It's okay. I'm happy to be the elephant. Adam Sukolfut. Of course you are. That's all you've ever wanted, right? Attention. Funny, I said, leaning forward. I thought that was your specialty. He glared. You know what really stings, Ryan? You didn't just come for me. You came for her. My mother. You think you're some kind of romantic hero, but you're just petty. No, Catherine said, her voice sharp. Don't you dare reduce this to a tantrum. You betrayed someone you called your brother. You slept with his wife. You crossed the line. And now that someone's finally drawn one for you, you don't like it. He stood abruptly. You don't see it, do you? You're being manipulated. I stood too. I didn't manipulate anyone. You think you're the center of every story, Adam, but newsflash, you're not the protagonist. You're just the mistake we outgrew. He looked at his mother, eyes flashing with something dangerously close to pain. You'd choose him over me? Catherine stood too, tall, elegant, unflinching. No, she said. I'm choosing myself. That hit him harder than anything else. Lauren, still seated, finally spoke again. You know, this could have ended differently. Ryan and I could have worked through it. We could have. You cheated. I cut in. You laughed in my face the moment you got caught. You and Adam never gave a single shit about what it cost me. Don't pretend you want reconciliation now. You want control. She flinched just barely. You two deserve each other. I finished. And trust me, that's not a compliment. Adam stormed out, slamming the front door hard enough to make the crystalware rattle. Lauren stood a moment later, collected her purse, and followed without another word. The house was quiet again. Elise let out a long breath. Well, that went exactly as I expected. Catherine looked at me. Her hand found mine beneath the table, fingers curling around mine. You okay? I asked quietly. I think I am, she said, for the first time in a long time. That night, as we lay in bed, Catherine curled into me and said something I didn't expect. I spent years defending him, making excuses for his selfishness. But tonight I realized sometimes the people you love become strangers, and you have to let them go. I kissed her shoulder, my hand sliding gently over her waist. You didn't lose a son tonight, I said. You lost an illusion. She nodded, eyes wet. And I gained something better, she whispered. A new truth, a new family. One we were starting, piece by imperfect piece. Spring rolled into summer with quiet determination, the kind of warmth that seeps in slowly, like healing, like closure, like starting over. Catherine and I didn't explode into some whirlwind romance. There were no grand declarations, no ring under moonlight, no champagne popping in celebration of our survival. What we had was quieter, stronger, a slow, steady burn that replaced the wreckage with something real. We started doing little things together. Breakfast on her patio with fresh coffee and the paper, long walks through her garden where she'd stop to scold the roses for growing unevenly. I moved some of my things into her home, one drawer at a time. She started calling it our space. Not hers, not mine, ours. It was weird at first. Good weird. The kind of weird where a former best friend's mother becomes the only woman who makes your world feel less chaotic, and yet more alive than it ever was. But love isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's a slow exhale after holding your breath for years. Lauren didn't reach out again. Her silence was a gift. I heard, through a mutual acquaintance, that she tried to rekindle things with Adam. Whatever relationship they thought they had, born from lust, betrayal, and delusion, collapsed under the weight of its own toxicity. Apparently, jealousy crept in, paranoia, screaming matches at restaurants. Lauren caught Adam texting someone late at night. Adam accused her of still being in love with me. It was poetic in a way. I never smiled about it, but I also didn't lose sleep. They got what they built. The biggest shift came on a lazy Sunday morning. Catherine sat across from me in one of my shirts, nothing else. legs tucked beneath her, hair a soft mess. She was reading the New York Times, biting absently into a piece of toast. It hit me then, how normal it felt. How natural. "You're staring," she said without looking up. "Yeah. Do I have jam on my face?" "Only a little." She smirked, wiping her cheek. "What are you thinking about?" I hesitated. And then, what this could be. Long term. She folded the paper and met my gaze. "Me too," she said. "A lot lately." I got up, crossed to her side of the table, and knelt. "Not with a ring. Not yet. But with intention. I want to build something with you," I said. "Not because I want to prove something to them, but because you're the only woman who's ever seen me, really seen me, and didn't look away." Her breath caught. Her eyes shined, but she didn't cry. Catherine Whitmore didn't cry easily. She slid her hands into my hair, kissed me, and whispered, "Then let's build." That fall, we took a trip to Florence. She'd always wanted to go back, not for the art, or the food, or the romance, but because her late husband had once taken her there, and she needed to reclaim it. On her terms, we sat under the Tuscan sun, drinking wine, her head on my shoulder, and I realized revenge had brought us together. But what kept us together was something more powerful. Grace. Forgiveness. Choice. Months later, Catherine stood in front of a fireplace at a family Christmas gathering. Not hers, mine, holding my niece on her hip, laughing as she read a story to the kids. My mom sat beside her on the couch, smiling, completely taken by her. My sister, always the skeptic, had pulled me aside earlier and said, "I get it now. She's not just some older woman. She's her. She's the one." I looked at Catherine and nodded. "Yeah, she is." Adam didn't come that Christmas. He hadn't spoken to Catherine since the night of the gala. She left the door open for reconciliation, because that's the kind of woman she was, but he hadn't taken a step through it. Maybe one day he would. Maybe not. That was on him. Some lines, once drawn, don't get erased. I won't pretend the journey made sense from the start, that it wasn't messy, painful, or morally gray as hell. I wouldn't wish the betrayal on anyone, but I wouldn't undo it either, because it showed me the truth. Love doesn't always come in a neat package. Sometimes it walks into your life disguised as revenge, unravels your world, then stays to rebuild it with you. Catherine and I, we were unexpected, but we were real. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry or broken. I was whole, and I was home.